Member Covino. Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney. Member Rappaport.
Present.
So Member Covino's here, right? He was here. Oh,
I think he said
Okay.
yes. It's just a little
Okay.
garbled. Okay. Then this is Barbara Maru. The town of Burlington will be holding the June 4th, 2020 Planning Board as a virtual electronic meeting due to the current state of emergency due to the COVID-19 virus. As such, the governor issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20.
so the meeting is held via Cisco WebEx and is accessible. I have background noise for some reason. Accessible as follows. It's posted on our agenda link in the calendar, as well as the Town of Burlington Planning Board website. The meeting number through WebEx is 712-288-579 with password 2020. The meeting can also be accessed via telephone, dialing 1-617-315-0704 with access code 716-816-222. It's also being broadcast on BCAT, Government Channel Comcast 99, RCN 15, Verizon 41, and streamed on Facebook Live via BCAT and Facebook page. Public input will be able to make comments during the hearing during the time for public comment. Questions can be asked via WebEx, phone, Facebook Live, WebEx chat, and email at planning@burlington.org during the meeting. All persons wishing to ask a question or make a comment must identify themselves. If you have any questions regarding participation during the meeting, you can call planning staff at 781-270-1645 or email at planning@burlington.org. And all votes will be taken by roll call vote.
This is Barbara. Thank you, Kristen. We have some continuances to start off the meeting. If someone could make a motion, please.
Madam Chair, this is Mike. I'd like to make a motion to take item 7E out of order.
Chairman LaRue,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba,
Yes.
Member Clerk Espaillo,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Raymond,
Yes.
Member Gaffney, not yet here, Member Rappaport.
Yes.
Thank you. This is Barbara, and item 7E is a continued public hearing application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.22.2 solar energy system ground mounted of the zoning bylaws, 50 Margaret Street, Northeast Solar Services doing business as Revolution is the applicant. May I have a motion to continue, please, to the planning board meeting of June 18th, 2020?
This is Mike, and it's so moved.
This is Ernie, second.
Thank you.
Chairman LaRue, Chairman LaRue,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba,
Yes.
Member Clerk Espaillo,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Gaffney, Member Rappaport.
Yes.
You missed Member Raymond.
Member Raymond.
We cannot miss Member Raymond. This is Barbara again. And next we have citizens time. If there is anyone in the listening or viewing audience that would like to make a comment or ask a question about something that is not on our agenda, please identify yourself now.
Chairman LaRue, this is Shari Ellis. Can I update the board on the zoning bylaw review committee meeting?
Yes, please.
Thanks. The ZBRC met last night, and we took some votes on the Murray Hills Escadrille warrant articles. The warrant articles, a couple of them were printed, not updated in the printing. So it was the original applications or proposals, and they weren't updated. So basically what we did last night was amended, or we're going to put some motions on the floor of town meeting, unfortunately, to amend those. And I believe I forwarded that information of its articles 38, 41, and 42. And so I forwarded those motions to your board, and then I also gave a little backup page as well. And I don't know if you want me to go into the details of that, but I just wanted to update you. It's mostly housekeeping articles. There was a duplicate phrase in one of the articles. That was in Article 41. In Article 38, there was a sentence that was extra that was not needed. And in Article 42, which is actually the rezoning, it actually is just really reformatted to the way that the town usually has the rezoning requests written. So that's kind of a brief synopsis. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anyway.
This is Barbara. Thank you, Sherry. So my understanding is that this is mainly housekeeping. If any members have any questions, please let me know. And
Thank you.
seeing no one. Oh, wait, did you have a question, Brenda?
No, I said no, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't think the board needs to take a vote on this because these are not substantive changes. If anyone feels differently, please let me know. But if you agree, I think we can just review these, and they're going to be amended on town meeting floor, as I understand it. Hopefully at the meeting that's happening in a couple weeks. If not, then in the September meeting. Does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Adams.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an item that is not on our agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to announcements.
First, I'll announce if you're not speaking, if you can just pay attention to your mute button. Announcements. Town election is happening on Saturday. And at the high school, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Town meeting is rescheduled to June 10th at 6 p.m. Sorry, not 7 p.m. 6 p.m. Burlington High School football field. The particulars, it will be outside. They hope to get through the whole warrant. I don't think I've ever seen a whole warrant get done in one night in May outside. So we'll see. More to come on that after the election. Also, just to highlight, Middlesex 3 and the New England Real Estate Journal have a bunch of webinars that are free to members, which are all of you. The Future of Real Estate for Life, Future of Real Estate Development for Life Sciences is Wednesday the 10th. The 17th, Sustainable Real Estate Development, and those two. So if anyone's interested, feel free to log in. And a reminder, the federal census is out there and you should complete it, and as well as the town census, so we can have an accurate picture of all of us at the federal level and town level. And also just wanted to highlight, we are getting in new applications. What is opening new at our next meeting is the definitive subdivision on Chandler Road, which is called Mill Pond Estates, that backs up to the Mill Pond Reservoir. That's a 3-lot subdivision. We also have an application for Common Craft Beer, which is special permit and site plan, looking to locate between kind of next to Fogo de Chao on that side of the mall. So you'll be seeing those new applications at the next meeting coming up. So with that, I don't have any announcements other than Liz is at home and, as far as I know, is happy and family is healthy. I tried to get another update for today, but they are, I don't have one. But as far as I know, everyone's happy and healthy, and we hope.
This is Barbara. Thank you, Kristen. We do not have any legal notices or non-approval, so we're going to move on to item 6A, administrative matters. The first item is item 6A, a continued discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 3 and 5 Dartmouth Road, General Walker Estates subdivision. General Walker Estates is the applicant. So what I'm hoping to do tonight is ask the applicant and the engineer who performed the peer review if they would like to do a very brief update as to anything that's changed, and then I want to have the board members take a few minutes to ask any questions that they might have on the peer review. So that's how we're going to start anyway, and we'll see where that takes us. So is Mr. Dowdy available?
Yes, I am. I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So we all had a chance to review the peer review, but it has since been updated. And if you'd like to give us a brief synopsis of what has changed, that would be welcome.
Absolutely. I'll be very brief, if that's okay.
Please.
Generally, my opinion is that the applicant has addressed all of my concerns in regards to my initial letter, and they've followed up from the initial letter with an additional submission, which included an additional drainage summary, some drainage improvement sheets, a revised HydroCAD report, the video inspection of the Cultec chambers, and they also provided an updated HydroCAD in regards to the runoff from the backyards of 3 and 5 Dartmouth, which definitely shows a reduced amount of runoff in the as-built condition compared to the as-designed condition from 3 or 4 years ago. The reason for the reduced runoff is that the yards are actually flatter now with the additional fill that was placed. So when you have a flatter yard, it gives runoff more of an opportunity to basically slow down, and it has more of a chance to infiltrate on its own within the yard. Whereas if you had a steeper yard, the runoff that hits the yard would have a shorter time of concentration, and therefore a greater chance of running off elsewhere. So I'm satisfied with, like I said, the video inspection. I'm satisfied with our HydroCAD analysis. I am satisfied with their analysis of the wall that's over by the driveway. And the rest of my letter, what they have not done yet are my recommendations about reporting and the future video inspection and the installation of the erosion controls, which I believe were done just very recently, if I'm not mistaken. So my opinion, I think the applicant has done his duty, and I have no further questions on my end. And I'm happy to take any questions from all of you.
This is Barbara. Thank you very much for that quick synopsis. I know I have a lot of questions, but I'm sure my other fellow board members also have questions. So let's start with them. Joe and Pemba, would you like to start us off? And I assume there are no department comments at this point, but we can check just to make sure.
I don't have any questions at this point. I just want to hear some discussion on it. I know, we had a lot of concerns with a lot of the issues. The grade was, the grade change and all those things that were done. But I'd rather, I would like to hear. I'm not fully convinced that it is necessarily for the better. There was another concern that I had. I wanted to find out I wanted to ask whether I know the town was supposed to be present when they put the cameras in. I want to find out if the town was present, and if the town was present, that's fine. If the town wasn't present, why were they not present when we requested that? So those are some of the things that I have. But I also want to hear, what neighbors, my proposal was I wanted to, get the pros and cons of that grade change, and I wanted the neighbors to be able to digest that, and wanted to hear, whether they were on board with that grade change or they weren't on board with the grade change. So those are some of my concerns. I don't want to, take too much time here, without obviously getting the input from the neighbors and things like that as well. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Can you guys hear me? Because I can't tell if I'm muted or not right now.
Yeah, we can hear you. Madam Chair, this is Kristen. I will note, I don't appear to see the applicant on the WebEx right now.
Okay.
Because we've accounted for everybody on the phone and they're not listed on the WebEx. So without the applicant, here. I mean, I certainly, Taylor's here, and I think there's a lot of things we can talk about. But
Yes.
without the applicant present as part of the dialogue, I would, as much as I think we want to put this behind us, I think we need to have the applicant to kind of conclude the matter. So
I would agree. Maybe maybe a representative from the
Yeah,
company will jump in.
I will say
Some-
there are a few department comments that have come in
Oh, okay.
after reviewing the minor engineering change as well as discussing with Taylor at a department level. We did have a call as well with the applicant with all departments to talk through some items. And if you would like, I can just read the updated comment.
Yes, please.
So from the building department has no objection as long as the developer agrees to all recommendations detailed in the BSC group's letter. Board of Health, on behalf of the Board of Health, there are no comments on the minor engineering change for this project. Conservation, now that the peer review process is done, we will submit the changes to the commission as a minor engineering change at the June 11th meeting.
Sorry.
However, I'm satisfied with the
They can't
changes
hear me.
to the drainage and grading as reviewed by BSC and will recommend approval of that minor engineering change to the commission. They also said that BSC did a very thorough peer review and I agree with their recommendation and conclusions and have no further issues or concerns. Engineering, I've reviewed the BSC peer review of the project dated 6/2/20 and agree with the conclusions and have no further comments or concerns. And as I mentioned, and as Member Raymond right before the meeting mentioned, that it is a lengthy minor engineering change draft decision. It includes a lot of things from the original decision as kind of a reminder that they're still out there and need to be met, as well as includes this entire discussion and all documentation that was submitted as part of this peer review process. So at such time as we get to a potential decision, I hope that you are satisfied and that we really have tried to include as much and all that we can in that decision. And just one other thing I just want to say, just for the benefit of this whole crowd and the neighbors, that the minor engineering change is one of multiple layers of where we are with this project right now. They have the original subdivision decision for which they're not complete. They're still bound to all the conditions in that 2016 decision. All of the lots are still, other than 3 and 5, are still held under the covenant for which the planning board needs to take a vote to release for building purposes as well as sale. And they need to, in order to eliminate the cul-de-sac at Francis Wyman and the access change to 4 Dartmouth, will need to come back to the planning board for an amendment to the subdivision itself. And on top of that, we also have the cease and desist order still in place. So I just want to, we're tied together in a few different ways, the minor engineering change being a piece of that. So just wanted to outline kind of how the whole picture and how it came together. And that's all I have for now. I mean, I think our hope was to try to get some of these things worked out so they could begin working on some of the recommendations that have been put forth to remedy some of the issues that have been identified. But I think tonight it would be good to just kind of talk through all of those a little more, and with Taylor here, if any of the neighbors or board have questions.
Thank you. This is Barbara again. Thank you, Kristen. Paul, Raymond, did you want to ask any questions regarding the peer review?
No, I didn't. I was impressed with the extent and detail, and hope that there's going to be eyes on that project at all times. In other words, it's not going to be they propose to do something and then they do it and go on to something else, and it never really gets a current approval. So I don't know how that's going to work, but with the history of the project, I think it requires the town to keep close eyes on it, even more so than we do on just regular projects. Its history speaks to that, but that was all. And I thought BSG did a really good job. I understood everything they were proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. This is Barbara again. Bill, I think I saw you enter. You here, Bill? All right. Would you have any questions?
Can you hear me, Barbara?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, the only question I had was for Mr. Dowdy was when you talked about the additional fill flattening, flattening that, when you talk about flattening, it's not a kind of a straight flat, is it? Or is it still angled one way or another, the property itself?
It's not flat at all. It became less steep than the 2015, 2016 design. And with that being less steep, that's what's causing the time of concentration to increase, and therefore it's reducing the amount of flow going downhill.
In the direction that it hasn't changed direction with regard to, with the fill, they didn't change it going from this way to that way, right? They just kept it's just less steep.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is Ernie. Do you
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Ernie.
what are the ramifications of proceeding without the applicant present?
Well, I think if we're just asking Mr. Dowdy about the peer review, there's really no harm. I think it would be difficult for us to do anything else.
Okay.
Would you like to start off with your questions then, Ernie?
Sure. As far as the peer review is concerned, I had the same. Can you explain in more detail? It seems counterintuitive that if you raise the level of the property, it makes it better. Can you maybe explain roughly what the grade used to be in percentage of slope and what it is now and that kind of thing? So that, is it remarkably better? Is it just a little bit better? That kind of thing.
Absolutely, no problem. So I don't have I don't know the actual slope percentage, but I do know it's been flattened out, and the amount of runoff that's been reduced is, I wouldn't call it slight, nor would I call it significant either, but it's somewhere in the middle of the two. Again, in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about 2 house lots, which is a lot different than, say, Burlington Mall that has acres and acres and acres of pavement, where they may generate a lot of stormwater runoff, where I think 2 house lots generate a fairly small amount anyway. So they flattened it out. It increased the time of concentration, I think, by 3 or 4 minutes, which is significant over a parcel of land that small. And it's that 3 or 4 minute extra time of concentration that results in a greater infiltration rate naturally on the surface, which means that you have reduced flows downhill.
Okay, so in your opinion, you're saying that this makes it better,
yes,
not worse for the neighbors. I'm talking about the neighbors now.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely correct. In my opinion, this is a better design for the community, essentially.
Okay. All right. That's all I have right now, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Oh, one other thing is do we know if the department comments have gone to the applicant also? Kristen, maybe. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was taking myself off mute. When departments come in and they go to us and they go through Jen is very good at distributing all the comments to the applicants.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to cross the T's and whatever.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. This is Barbara again. Mike, would you like to weigh in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My concern, actually, Joe hit upon it, was I was wondering why, it's my understanding there wasn't a town representative at the inspection. We just have a video copy, and I was just wondering why that wasn't done, but that's all I have, Madam Chair.
So this is Kristen. For the answer to that question, we did talk about it. The applicant had it done without coordinating when it was going to be done, so we weren't out there. You're on mute. There you go.
Kristen. Did you have any other questions, Mike, or did you want to follow up on that question?
No, I'm all set. Thanks, Madam Chair. And thanks, Kristen.
I will say that in the decision and conditions, It's required that they do every 6-month inspections, that a town borough of Burlington representative be there at all inspections. And another thing we suggested, the applicant, not the applicant, the developer is responsible until such time as the planning board declares the subdivision complete for maintenance of that system. We are recommending that they actually fund it for a few years down the road past that as well. So that's something just to think about considering. And it's every 6 months, so it's by 2 times annually cleaning that, again, those also would be required to be witnessed by the town of Burlington. But originally it went till we declared it complete, and then it was the homeowners, but we're asking to have the developer fund for 3 years past that, if you guys so choose. But that would be our recommendation.
Thank you, Kristen. This is Barbara again. So you're going to put it in the condition that they have to inform the town before the 6-month inspection. Were they not required to do that this time as well?
It wasn't as, unlike test pits, which are a regulatory issue under the Board of Health. They should inform us of the inspections, but it wasn't as widely written in the original decision. But you did ask prior to the cleanout, so they should have notified us.
We did ask, and they should have notified us. I find it concerning that we were not notified, because this has been such a difficult process, and I think it was very clear to everyone that we wanted to have town staff present for that test. And so it's difficult to trust that this will be handled correctly going forward, because at every turn, these things keep happening. But anyway, not my turn yet. Brenda, did you have any questions or comments on the peer review?
No, I have nothing additional to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. This is Barbara, and I do have some questions. I understand what Mr. Dowdy was explaining about the flattening of the property and why that made the fact that the grade was raised better. I do think it would be helpful for us and for the neighbors if you could put that in writing and you could then add those details that you didn't have with you tonight about the change in grade. I think that would be helpful for us to have and for the neighbors to have. So is that something that you could provide in a few days, Mr. Dowdy?
Yes, the applicant has submitted those details, and I do touch on those details in my letter, if that's what you mean.
The letter that we already received?
Yes, dated June 2.
It has the details about how much the grades have changed and how the runoff changed and all that.
I believe it does. Yes, on page 2 of the letter, item number 6.
So,
let me see if I can find that.
Okay.
That might take me a minute, so I'll probably do that offline. We might be looking for more detail on that.
Okay.
Okay. So my next question is regarding the stone wall. I actually went out to the site today because the last time I was able to visit it, it was February. So things looked significantly different then. A lot was covered with snow, and it was harder to get a good idea of what the conditions were out there. So I did take a walk around in the woods and in the cul-de-sac and all over. And I'm concerned about that stone wall. Neighbors showed me where there was one large boulder and one smaller, what I would call a large rock, as opposed to a boulder that used to be in the wall that have since become dislodged. And my concern is if after this short a period of time, there are already pieces of the wall becoming dislodged, how do we know that's not going to continue to happen? And how can we ensure that that won't continue to happen? And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because when I go out and look at that, honestly, it doesn't even really look like a wall. It just looks like somebody put a bunch of boulders that they dug up and lined them up in a row. They do not look stable. And I don't think it would be that much of a concern if it weren't for the fact that the the land is so much higher on the other side of the wall. And then right after that, there's the fence and the driveway. If that rock wall were to crumble, I think that whole thing could come down. So I'm concerned about it. It does not, I know I'm not an engineer and I'm not pretending to be, but from a layperson's point of view, it does not look stable.
Understood. I totally understand your concerns. I've looked at the rock wall, and I have, Kristen has provided a copy of, I think, of the photos that you took today. So I have seen the boulder and the rock that you refer to. I go back to Steve Dresser's letter. I do think this is a common application to hold up earth. If this were holding up the house, or something of significant weight, I think I would be more concerned. But all it is holding up the little portion of the driveway and some landscaping. And I don't think there's a lot of bearing weight on top of the wall. And when I was there in March, I didn't see any signs of like depressions or areas of erosion or things like that. And especially with now that if this minor engineering change is approved, the developer is going to be required to install that Cape Cod berm, which keeps the water on the driveway.
Well, let's come back to the Cape Cod berm. That's another issue.
But it is. I guess I'm just making the point that if it's a Cape Cod berm or some other treatment, it keeps the water on the driveway, and there's very little runoff coming off towards the edge of the wall. I don't think it'll fail. If it were to fail, walls generally don't have a catastrophic failure. You see the signs of it, like you start to see small depressions in, say, the driveway or the landscaping right next to the driveway. I don't envision any type of catastrophic failure whatsoever. I don't see that house coming down with that. The house is too far away from that wall for that to be a concern for me, anyway.
Thank you. I wasn't so much concerned about the house falling down as I was about the rock wall itself crumbling and then ending up in someone else's yard where it doesn't belong. And possibly, I think it's possible the fence might be implicated as well because it's so close. I don't really know. So I never expected the house to fall down. It's not that close. But it would still be a problem if the rocks themselves were unstable and rolled down.
I mean, yeah, there's like I said, there's always a concern with unstableness. I don't see any signs of it, nor would I anticipate any signs of it. Based on what I've seen.
Okay, and I don't mean to be difficult, but I think that the fact that 2 rocks have already become dislodged is a sign.
Okay, understood. I mean, I would say I'd like to see, I guess, where they came from. Have they definitely become dislodged, or is there a chance that could have been just extra material that was they were getting rid of, so to speak, and that's where they ended up?
I'm certainly no expert, but I do know that we could hear from the neighbors who might be able to shed some light on that. But we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. The only other question that I had for you that is related specifically to the peer review is regarding the Cape Cod berm. And I know I had discussed with staff, and we've discussed it previously at these meetings, that not all of us were comfortable with that and would prefer to see vertical granite curbing instead.
Yeah, I have no issue with a vertical piece of curb.
Okay, well, the applicant's not here, so I know you can't agree to anything, but you would agree that that is not a problem and might be superior? Would that be fair to say? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Okay.
So, this is Kristen. We also conditioned it to be vertical granite in the draft decision. And we also had a question mark about the wall itself as to if it was something we wanted to hold a bond for a year or so, or just the question mark in, I don't remember what number it is, but is bond question mark, for how long question mark, how much question mark on the wall if there was concern about that issue. So just
Okay,
for
thank
food
you,
for thought.
Kristen. Okay, so I have some other questions, but they're really more for the applicant and not for Mr. Dowdy. So unless he has joined us, I think I'm going to take a chance now to see if some of the neighbors would like to speak on this particular issue on the peer review itself. I know that Mr. Miller is present. Mr. Miller, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
So why don't you speak first about your concerns?
Okay. I'll continue on with the question about the Cape Cod berm, which now sounds like it's changing to a vertical granite curbing. But with either one question, what about vehicles hitting the berm? It's a pretty narrow driveway, long and narrow driveway. We can see how the owners there, when they back out of the driveway, have to be very careful. There's not a lot of maneuvering room. Sometimes he backs his vehicle up all the way up to the cul-de-sac. So I can imagine vehicles hitting the berm. What if the owners hire snow plowing service to plow the driveway? Is that going to tear up? Maybe it doesn't tear up the granite as much, but is that going to be an issue? And then, so if it was asphalt, I had the question about, is it durable enough? If you're going granite, maybe it's a little better. But then one of the questions is, are the owners of 5 Dartmouth okay with having a berm along their driveway? Does anybody ask them how they feel about having their property modified? And also with that whole solution, since that whole thing is going to be going into a swale in the backyard, has anybody asked them whether they're happy about having a swale in their backyard? I know they have little children, they have dogs. I don't know, maybe they don't want that in their backyard. Has anybody asked them about that? Because and remember when I came up with, it was actually something based on what Mr. Champy had recommended in a previous meeting, about putting the infiltration system instead of in the back where he's proposing one now, putting it under the driveway, so we could then connect the downspouts to it under the driveway, fixing the driveway up. And Mr. Dowdy called that the belt and suspenders solution. Well, at least with that solution, there wouldn't be any visible change to the property there. 5 Dartmouth property would look just as it does now. There wouldn't be any curbing along there. There wouldn't be any swales in the backyard. So would the owners be more happy with that? I would be more happy with that because to me, that's a much more bulletproof solution for drainage problem. So I guess maybe I'll let Mr. Dowdy comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Yes, Mr. Dowdy, I don't know if, well, I don't know if Mr. Dowdy will feel comfortable commenting on that. I don't know if that's within the purview of his study, but let's ask him. Mr. Dowdy?
Yeah, I think the vertical granite curb is a good solution. It's vertical granite is set in concrete. So in terms of vehicles hitting it, since it's set in concrete, the curb generally doesn't move. If anything, it would just damage tires or damage hubcaps on the vehicle. As far as snow plows, as you guys know, here in New England, vertical granite is a very good and very good curb and a very strong curb that withstands years of snowplow abuse. And I would say that, especially in a residential driveway situation, the plows aren't even going to get up to a good head of speed on this particular driveway where you're risk damaging anything. If the plow hits it, generally the blade of the plow would just kind of pop up, and the driver would wake up from his slumber and back up. So I hope that answers the question on that.
Can you,
Thank you,
I know
Mr.
it's just
Dowdy.
a point of confusion. Can you just clarify what the system that's being put at the end of the driveway that's connecting into the drainage system is proposed to be?
Yes, it's was going to be a surface forebay, but it's now been proposed to be an additional infiltration system, which is basically a bed of double wash stone, and on top of the double wash stone, it's a series of pipes, of perforated pipes that infiltrate the water from the driveway. Any runoff, or not runoff, any.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
I'm not sure.
Yes.
I think so. Madam Chair, this is Mike. Can I make a point?
Is that Mike?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Mike. Sure.
I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but I find it incredibly disappointing that the applicant is not here with us tonight. Everybody's here taking the time to talk about this. I think we're putting a little bit too much, even though it seems like he can handle it fine, Mr. Dowdy, but I don't know how we can even continue without the applicant here to hear everyone's concerns. We have the residents here, we have the whole board, we have everybody here, but the applicant has chosen not to show tonight. I don't know if I find this acceptable.
I would have to agree with you, Mike.
I second that. If we're taking the time to speak about this, you should be able to take the time to hear it and add to, the discussion. I would be in favor of continuing this until the next meeting.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mike. I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to have to do that. But I don't want to require Mr. Dowdy to come back to the next meeting if it's not absolutely necessary. So that's why I was hoping to get our questions for him out, which I think we've done. We still have to wait to hear from some other neighbors. But I did want to ask Mr. Miller, now that Mr. Dowdy has explained to you what the drainage system is at the end of the driveway, does that make you feel a little more comfortable? Does that help at all? Or do you still have the same concern?
It makes me a little more comfortable that it's going to be granite instead of asphalt. That'll hold up and hold the water back. I still would prefer the other one because I'm not a civil engineer, but I'm an engineer and I like bulletproof, rock solid solutions. And to me, the other one would be a win-win solution. The property owners there would not have anything along their driveway. They wouldn't have any swale or whatever gravel stuff in their backyard. They would have the property that they have now. Nobody would see anything, and I would get a much more bulletproof drainage situation. So that's my only comment there.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Just 1 minute. So I know, Mr. Miller, that the applicant was aware of that other option, the one that he called belt and suspenders. And I think I would be very happy to ask him about that and see if the board would like to require that. But I don't think we can do that tonight since they are not here.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you. Ernie, did you have a question?
Yes, for Mr. Dowdy, I think there may be a misconception. I believe that the granite would still be required in order to direct the water into the infiltration system, even if it was under the driveway. Am I mistaken, Mr. Dowdy, in that?
That's what I thought too.
So whether the infiltration system is under the driveway or at the end of the driveway, I think the granite is still required. Is that not correct?
That was my understanding.
I would say it depends on if an extra infiltration system was required at the driveway. That would totally depend on how they chose to design and install it. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, I thought the curbing was required because the driveway is pitched towards our property. And if they put the infiltration system underneath the driveway and corrected the pitch of the driveway, we wouldn't have the concern of the water coming towards us anymore. At least that's my understanding. Mr. Dowdy, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not right. I would say nobody's wrong in this case. It depends on what infiltration system they proposed and the method that they chose to get the water from that driveway to a potential new infiltration system. That's all.
Okay.
If they made a trench drain right down the middle of the driveway, perhaps, that would mean then the driveway would want to pitch like a V shape, and you have the low point of the driveway would be in the middle rather than on the edge near the wall. There's all kinds of options. Is all I'm saying. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a little difficult for us to go too much further down this path without them here. Mr. Miller, did you have any other questions for Mr. Dowdy?
Yep. Just a question about the stone wall that I guess Barbara already asked a lot about. But I guess from my point of view and anybody else who's seen it, are you saying that stone wall is holding back the soil that the driveway is built on. That soil isn't going to be seeping out. I thought you needed to have some sort of impervious barrier to keep the soil from coming out. I mean, we can visually see soil coming out of areas in that wall already. But I can't imagine that over some period of time, soil is going to be seeping out and the driveway is going to, maybe not catastrophic, but it's certainly going to collapse at some point. That's at least my view. There's nothing behind the rocks. It's just the boulders are put there and the soil was backfilled. So I guess I'm just kind of puzzled. I don't see anything that's ever going to hold that soil back from coming out over time.
Yeah, I would defer to the applicant on that. I think, like I said earlier, this is a common application for a less than 4-foot wall in the New England area. I know I'm sounding repetitive, and I apologize on that, but I think it's very common because this tends to be a tried and true method for this type of application.
Mr. Dowdy, this is Barbara again. Do you know how tall the wall is at its highest point?
At its highest, I do not. I could speak in general.
More than 4 feet. I'm not sure.
It could be. I think the one site visit that I was there, I think I couched it earlier as anywhere between 2 and 4 feet. You know, maybe there is a chance that it may go above 4 feet in an area.
Okay, well, again, we're not going to be able to resolve anything tonight without the applicant here. Mr. Miller, did you have any other questions for Mr. Dowdy?
Yeah, about the 2-foot grade raising. What about those of us who have properties on the side of that grade raising? Now that it's a steeper slope of the side, are we going to get more water coming off the side onto our property from it? Because we're not the ones downhill from that property. We're off to the side of the property.
Yeah, I think the both designs, the 2015, 2016 design and the current as built condition, the water to me appears to be, and the design plans indicate the water is shedding back down towards the cul-de-sac. And I think, Kristen, you can correct me if I get the name wrong. Is it Williams or something like that?
Williams Circle.
Thank you. Thank
Back
you.
of the site, Gloria Circle's on the side.
Okay. So, Mr. Miller, I believe I know where your residence is, and I don't see water from the backyard heading in your direction based on the plans and what I've seen on site.
Okay. I guess just one sort of comment on that. If raising the grade was beneficial, I'm just kind of odd that it wasn't part of the original plans. If it gave the new owners a better backyard and an improved drainage, kind of funny that it wasn't part of the original plan. And I remember back in the original public hearings for this project, one of the abutters hired an independent engineer to look over the drainage plans from Mr. Dresser to make sure that drainage, everything was hunky-dory. And a lot of time, effort, and money went into all that. And it's almost like now, tear all that up and whatever. So it's just, I guess it's just amazing to me that it's raising the grade is now better, and nobody saw that 2 or 3 years ago when this project started. Anyway, that's just an editorial comment. So the real bottom line is, can I be assured that the water issues that I have seen since these 2 houses went up, the water issues in my garage, in my backyard, are they going to be alleviated by these proposed fixes?
I think he's asking you, Mr. Dowdy.
Sure. Sorry. I don't see any negative impacts from number 3 and number 5 Dartmouth with the proposed changes that they submitted for this minor engineering change. I don't see any negative impacts to any neighbors. In fact, I think it improves the situation from the 2016 plan.
I'm not sure that answers Mr. Miller's question. So I'll phrase it differently.
Madam Chair,
What is the remedy if this,
Can I ask a question related to that? Because I actually had it written down. I'm saying, does the existing plan, does that explain Mr. Miller's water that he currently has where he never had that before? And that'd be to Mr. Downey.
That's a difficult question to answer, and the reason why is that I don't have a survey of the Miller property. I don't know what else drains to the Miller property. You have to look at a lot of other factors other than just 3 and 5 Dartmouth, and how that may be
changed?
I'm sorry, say that again.
That's the only thing that changed.
But again, you'd have to. I guess the best way I can describe it is if you compare it to a series of pipes, and within, say, any town road in Burlington, and you have a bunch of properties draining to it, and just because you develop a property and connect to that drainage pipe, that doesn't necessarily mean that 2 miles down the road before it outlets into a pond or a swamp that this development may or may not cause an impact to from that property. You would need to analyze the whole. You need to look at the whole rather than just the micro, so to speak. And I don't have any.
What you're saying, and I think what I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around is if this property, Mr. Miller's property, never had water before, and now it has water, we should be able to figure out why and fix that. The only thing that changed was 3 and 5 Dartmouth. So it's kind of, disingenuous for us to say, well, maybe there's some other reason why all of a sudden there's water on that property. Nothing else changed.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think I'm being disingenuous.
No, not you. Not you. I'm sorry. I think I phrased that incorrectly. Please forgive me. What I mean is nothing else changed. So why are we looking for another possible reason? It has to be something that happened at 3 and 5 Dartmouth.
I mean, based on the plans that I've reviewed for 3 and 5, the water is, directed away from the Miller property, and in fact, the water is any discharge of the water is downstream from the property line of the Miller, not downstream, but downhill from the property line of the Miller property that he shares with, I believe it's 5 Dartmouth. And it's hard to see a connection without seeing a survey of the surrounding properties as well.
Madam Chair, if I can ask one more question on that.
Yes, please, Bill.
If you took an area that had all sorts of large mature trees that would typically absorb a lot of if you removed a lot of mature trees, would that exacerbate maybe just the full groundwater that would be present in the surrounding neighborhood?
So that was part of the original design by Dresser, Williams, and Way. My understanding is that pre-development, this was just a wooded area. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So that wooded area has what they call a coefficient of runoff. If it's woods, it's a very low coefficient of runoff, meaning that the woods tend, you're right, the woods do tend to absorb a lot of the water. And when you knock the trees down, clear the forest, put down a house and pavement, you have the same amount of water from the rainstorm. However, there's less opportunity to infiltrate. And that's where Mass DEP steps in, and they've created this stormwater policy where you're required to do infiltration or detention or water quality type features. And it's those features that are designed by the civil engineer, in this case, Dresser, Williams, and Way, that mitigate any impacts from the development. That's in a nutshell, that's kind of the whole nature of civil design when it comes to any piece of property. And they've certainly cleared the hurdle of meeting the Massachusetts stormwater policy, and they've met the town of Burlington's policy, where I believe Burlington says you have to infiltrate up to the 100-year storm, and that's certainly what the calculations show that have been supplied by Dresser, Williams, and Way.
Thank you.
So, I understand what you're saying, and I know, a lot of Burlington is very low, and a lot of people in Burlington have problems with water. But as a homeowner, not an engineer, I would want to know why all of a sudden my property that never had water before is now getting water. And it would not comfort me to hear that the system that was designed was properly designed and is supposed to handle the water. If I'm getting water in my garage, that's all I care about.
I understand what you're saying. I definitely do.
So what is the remedy? Is there a remedy?
I don't know. I go back to I'd like to see the grading of the Miller Yard to see if there's, you look at low spots. Is there a certain place it's happening, or it's hard to say there's, it's remedy A when I don't think I have a 100% clear picture of.
I understand, and I understand, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be asking you a question that's impossible to answer with the information that you have. I think the point that I believe you got is that nothing else changed. So it's something that happened in that property, and maybe it's the fact that they removed a bunch of trees and put in a bunch of impervious surface and dug a basement and put a big house there. But the system was supposed to handle that, and it doesn't seem that it is. And what we do about that, I don't know. But I'm concerned about it as a planning board member, but also just as a homeowner. I feel for these residents.
I totally understand.
Okay. Mr. Miller, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
One comment and I guess one sort of request.
Mm-hmm.
Comment I just want to make is the reason we're even here discussing this minor engineering change was because of two things the developer did. He didn't build things according to the approved plan, particularly the 3 and 5 Dartmouth driveways and garage plans. And what the developer did build was built incorrectly. So if I had to choose one thing out of all the stuff, what my priorities would be, I know I was big on the grade raising because that's sort of a violation of a lot of things. But what's actually come higher in my priority list is the 5 Dartmouth driveway situation, because that's water that's directly pouring over onto our property. And I would like to see, in light of all the things the developer has done up to this point and not done up to this point, and even tonight, not even continuing late, as you said, the town wasn't there to be there when the inspection was done. He didn't show up tonight. So I certainly would like to see the belt and suspenders solution instead of the berm and swale solution. I think that would give me more comfort. I think the 5 Dartmouth homeowners would probably have more comfort. But that's my opinion, and that's sort of that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Fair enough, Mr. Miller. Kristen, I have a question for you. Is that something that we can just put in the decision?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let's just do it.
If we can, we want to kind of justify the reason, but yes, if we can justify it, we can put it in there. Yes.
Then I would like to ask my fellow board members if they would feel comfortable with adding that to the decision. So I'm going to go down the list real quick. Joe? Okay, Paul Raymond.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and I can't give you a yes, no on it, really. I know that's fudging, but...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Paul. Could you say that again?
I said I fudged my answer. I gave a yes/no answer.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to take it to mean you don't have strong feelings either way. How's that?
Yeah, I don't. The implications of it, aren't significant enough to me to not go with what the BSC group said. So that's it. That's my comment.
Oh, okay. Joe, I don't know if, are you here, Joe? Okay, Mike, I can see you, so I know you're here.
Hi, Madam Chair, could you clarify the question one more time for me?
Yes, what Mr. Miller is asking is that the infiltration system, instead of being put in at the end of the driveway, be put under the driveway and have the downspouts feed into it. That would require that the driveway would also be pitched correctly so that the water would flow into that infiltration system. It wouldn't require the one at the end of the driveway. It would be under the driveway instead. At a previous meeting, the applicant referred to that as the belt and suspenders approach. So it's safer.
Well, actually, just to correct, the applicant suggested he'd be willing to do that. It was actually Mr. Dowdy who called it the belt and suspenders approach.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Miller. Does
I have no
that
issue
help?
with that, Madam Chair. No issue. I'm in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Brenda.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm in favor of that as well. Thank you.
Okay, Ernie?
I think I would be in favor of it. I believe it involves regrading the driveway, and
That's my understanding.
where would it be infiltrating from? A center drainage type thing? Mr. Dowdy, a question to Mr. Dowdy, how would you? I guess we would do it the way you say it should be done. How should it be done?
My opinion, if chairperson would like for me to answer, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. My opinion is that it needs to be designed by the applicant, by Steve Dresser. He's the one that has all the calculations on it. And let me remind everyone that the infiltration system, the extra infiltration system that they're proposing at the end of the driveway is already underground. It's not a surface feature anymore. So they're proposing it underneath his landscaping, which is very common. So if you're talking about moving that infiltration system to the driveway, that's just going to cause more disturbance. They're going to have to rip up the driveway, repave just a good portion of it. So I'm not 100% sure that's the fact that you're moving it under the driveway, if that accomplishes everything that we're trying to do here, if that makes sense.
Well, if you call that it was a belt and suspender, it was a much better solution from a drainage point of view.
What I called a belt and suspenders, I thought, Mr. Miller, that you had mentioned you wanted a second, or in this case, it would be a third infiltration system underneath the driveway. Okay.
No.
Yeah, if we're not, that's what I was referring to as a belt and suspenders approach. My opinion is that the as-designed system they have at the end of the driveway now, which is underground, the one that's not installed yet because the MEC has not been approved, I think that one is more than adequate. And maybe it may be more appropriate to have the conditions say that the applicant will tie all the downspouts that are not currently tied in to the drainage system, have him route the downspouts underground directly to that infiltration system, if that makes sense.
May I ask a question? Is the driveway currently pitched so that the water is running into that infiltration, or where that infiltration system would be?
Yes, yes, there's a high point of the driveway almost at the front portion of the house. And from that high point, the remainder of the driveway goes all the way back to this infiltration system. Now, not all of it at the moment is being captured because there's no vertical curb there. As soon as the vertical curb's installed, it will keep that water in the driveway and send it back to where that infiltration system would be once it is installed.
Okay, and the vertical granite would go along the edge of where the fence is?
Yes, that's correct. Because the driveway is pitched towards.
Installation of that would not disturb the rock wall that's right on the other side of the fence.
No. I'd have, let me pull the plan up.
Okay. It just occurred to me, I don't know if it would, but because I thought those granite curbing, I thought that went pretty deep.
It only goes, generally it's about 18 inches deep.
That seems
Based
deep.
on what I'm seeing, I don't think it would impact the rock wall.
Okay. Mr. Miller, does that plan make you feel more comfortable when you heard Mr. Dowdy explain it?
Somewhat, although the drive, I guess, the fact that it has to be done is, I know he said that there is a pitch towards, from the cul-de-sac side towards the rear, but it's also pitched right now towards our driveway. Our backyard.
Great.
Yes, that's correct. And that's where the vertical curve.
So what I was calling the belt and suspenders was, since you were going to have to dig up the driveway to correct the pitch and do everything properly.
Why is it pitched? Was that done on purpose, or is that a mistake?
Can I continue my question with Mr.?
Oh,
And it might solve
the question.
your question. So it's not installed presently, correct? So the water running from the beginning of the house to the end of the driveway, because it's pitched that way. Where is that going? It's going onto Mr. Miller's land right now. And when the infiltration gets installed, it will capture that water, so it will be going in the proper place. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so right now we do not have a completed drainage system because the water from the driveway is not running into where it should be running. And if this minor engineering change is put into place, then that should solve, hopefully, that problem. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at. The point I was trying to get across was that we're looking at something that is incomplete right now, and
Yes.
you could punish the developer by making him dig up the driveway and put another one underneath, but it doesn't seem like it accomplishes anything.
I understand what you're saying, Ernie, and it isn't complete, and the granite curbing isn't in either, which would direct the water correctly. My only last question would be, why is the driveway pitched toward Mr. Miller's property in the first place? Was that built incorrectly, or was that the way it was supposed to be? I'm asking Mr. Dowdy, I guess.
Yeah, I ducked away to pull out the plans again.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's not on the what date is this? It's not on the 2016 plans because they didn't have driveways that wrapped around the back of the house.
Okay, so that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're probably getting a little too far into the weeds when the developer is not here, but two different solutions that we're going to need to decide between with involvement of the developer. I don't think we're going to be able to resolve this tonight, unfortunately. Mr. Miller, do you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you. You've been working on this a long time, and we really appreciate how meticulous you have been. Thank you. So, are there any other neighbors that want to talk about the peer review specifically?
Hi, Madam Chairman. This is Anthony Matarazzo. How are you?
Hello, Anthony.
First of all, I just want to thank the planning department and the planning board for this peer review. It clearly shows that you're looking out for the best interests of the abutters. And I also understand that all of these questions that are being asked are very fair questions, and you're asking those questions to make sure that it's the best solution for the abutters. I guess what I want to understand is, so we have this issue that we're dealing with, and, a professional engineer made a recommendation on how to fix it. Another independent, unbiased professional engineer was hired to look at the other engineer's resolution, and he's now saying that the as-built is actually better than it was before. He's also saying that he agrees that whatever the original engineer was planning to do, plus whatever Mr. Dowdy has added on, is going to be the solution that is going to work. So, I think last meeting, a lot of the members of the planning board just had some questions around getting a level of comfort and having Mr. Dowdy sort of clearly say, yes, I feel like this plan is going to work. So now that we have that, I guess I'm just wondering what's next. I mean, short of hiring a third engineer, he's telling us that he's comfortable. He's telling us he thinks it's going to work. So I think, at this point, I'm hoping we're getting close to a decision. And I want to make it clear that if this goes another couple of months, I'm more than fine with that. Whatever we need to do to make sure that my fellow neighbor does not get water is what I want to do. But again, he's a professional, and he's looked at another professional, and he's saying it's going to work. So I guess that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Matarazzo. I do think that we're getting very close. I don't think it's going to be months at all. I'm hoping that we'll be able to vote on this minor engineering change at our next meeting. It would have been helpful if the developer were here today, but he isn't. So thank you for your input. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to comment?
Barbara?
Yes? Who's that?
Barbara, this is Joe. So
Joe, hi.
You were calling on me. I was trying to talk, and nothing was going through. So I had to disconnect and reconnect again.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Please go ahead.
So the question I have is, and this would be for the peer review engineer. If we come to a decision that the recommendations as he states them would be sufficient, and those get implemented, and there's still a problem, is there another level of drainage that would correct this problem, or potentially correct this problem, if this level of drainage didn't correct it?
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Dowdy?
You can always start adding in infiltration systems upon infiltration systems. I think you're looking at a diminishing returns if you keep adding extra infiltration systems here. And no.
So I guess that from that answer, I'm gathering that if this doesn't work, then nothing's going to work. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm struggling answering this because it's such a hypothetical in terms of what may work, what may not work. I don't have a good answer for it. I guess.
Mr. Dowdy, maybe I can ask you the question a little bit differently.
Sure.
If we're not worried about the current driveway having to be ripped up, if you were looking at the system that is planned currently versus the system that Mr. Miller was talking about, which one is better if you're not worried about how difficult it might be to achieve?
I think they're both equal.
Okay.
It's just moving one infiltration system to another spot. That's all it is.
Okay, so what you're saying is if we leave the infiltration system at the end of the driveway as it's currently planned and add the vertical granite curving and require that the downspouts are all connected to that system, you feel that that would be the same as the belt and suspenders approach that was discussed previously?
Yeah, and I apologize at the last hearing on this. I apparently misunderstood Mr. Miller's comment.
It's quite all right.
Yeah. I thought we were talking about having the infiltration system at the end of the driveway and another one.
And in the driveway.
Yeah, that's what I would call belt and suspenders.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of the location of it, whether it's under the driveway or at the end of the driveway, it's the same. It would have the same effect.
And
the
are
same
you
outcome.
confident in saying that the pitch of the driveway, which is currently pitched toward Mr. Miller's property, that problem will completely go away once the granite curbing is installed?
Oh yeah, no question. It'll keep the runoff on the driveway and direct it towards the end where the infiltration system is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment on this? I think we probably need to move on because we've been on this for over an hour and the applicant isn't even here. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is Ernie. Just one final question for the Mr. Dowdy.
Of course.
Thank you. Can you how does the water get into the infiltration system at the end of the driveway, Mr. Dowdy?
If you give me just a second, I can look that up. I apologize. I don't have that readily in front of me.
He's looking for that. I guess since we're not, this is Kristen, since we're not voting tonight, I would take the time to take a look at the draft. I mean, obviously there'll be some changes based on this conversation, but the draft decision that we've provided for you is kind of a starting point to think about getting to a decision at some point. So between now and next meeting or whenever this comes up next.
Thank you. I don't want to put Mr. Dowdy on the spot if he needs to review his records. Mr. Dowdy, perhaps you could get back to us with the answer to that question tomorrow.
Yeah, I just found it actually. There's a small, at the end of the driveway, there's a small little paved swale where the curb continues and where it goes into the infiltration system. And that was submitted by Steve Dresser back in March.
Okay, I'd want some way to make sure that swale or whatever it might be isn't just completely filled with snow or something when somebody is plowing, because in that case then it won't reach the infiltration system, especially if it snows and then it freezes. Is there some way that you could suggest that could be done? Because if it's there and it's not working, that doesn't work. So we'll make sure it doesn't get impeded by whatever. That's just a comment since we're going to continue. I don't really need the answer right now.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
All right. I think we are ready to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of June 18th, 2020.
This is Ernie, so moved.
Thank you.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Espaillo. Member Covino. Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll take that up again. I'm going to ask staff if they could please reach out to the developer tomorrow and find out why they weren't here. Hopefully there was no illness or something preventing them from being here, and hopefully they'll be here at the next meeting. Thank you.
We'll do.
Okay.
We reached out before this meeting, but we'll do.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to the next matter of appointment, which is on page 11. And I am looking for a motion to take items 7A, B, C, and D together for discussion purposes.
So moved. This is Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Chairman LaRue. Oh, sorry, second.
Second?
Second. This is Brenda.
Chairman
Thank you,
LaRue.
Brenda. Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Españo.
Yes.
Member Covino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes, and I have a question.
Let me finish roll call. Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I'm looking at the staff report, and I'm looking at the bottom of page 10.
Yep.
And it says matters of appointment, and you said page 11. So am I?
Page 10 is correct.
Thank you.
But it's matters of, it is item 7A, right?
Yep.
Okay, I think my printout just came out differently, so sorry about that.
You want me to make that motion?
Oh,
No, we already
we
just did
we
it.
made the motion to take them together. So now I'm just going to read them. So item 7A is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.22, drive-through of the zoning bylaws, 150 Lexington Street, Aristo Development LLC Incorporated as the applicant. Item 7B is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.4.1.11, discharges from man-made structures into the wetlands of the zoning bylaws, 150 Lexington Street, Aristo Development LLC Incorporated as the applicant. Item 7C is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 6.1.2.1, non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaws at 150 Lexington Street, Aristo Development is the applicant. And item 7D is a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 150 Lexington Street, Aristo Development LLC is the applicant. So, is the applicant present?
Yes, we are, Madam Chair. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn here tonight with Remer Bronstein, representing the applicant in connection with the application. Good evening. Hope you all are doing well. So we have the same group of folks here tonight that we've had at the past 2 meetings that we've had. So I know that we had a pretty lengthy conversation at both of your prior meetings about the project. And again, I'm not going to, rehash the project. I think you know what it is at this point, but a Citizens Bank proposal for the outer limits of the existing Kohl's parking lot. So I know that there have been some plan revisions and changes that we've made in response to the feedback and the questions that we got at the last meeting. We also had an opportunity to meet with, quote unquote, meet virtually with both Kristen and Police Safety Officer Sergeant McDonough to talk further about the cut through and try to come up with a solution there, which we feel that we have. And I know that Sergeant McDonough, I'm not sure if he's on the phone or the audio tonight, but I know he did send a communication to the planning board following up on that. So what I thought we could do maybe is just touch upon some of the plan changes that have been made. I mean, I think they really focus on traffic safety and trying to address that cut through in the most safe manner possible. And then pedestrian safety, we've made some significant improvements there as well. And then some additional landscaping. So I defer to you, Madam Chair, and Kristen, how you'd like to maybe go about the conversation, but we could certainly start with the dialogue that took place relative to the cut through and how we've addressed that, if you thought that might make sense off the top. So.
Yes, thank you. I think that would be a good place to start. This is Barbara. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right, great. So Ron Mueller is our traffic consultant that has been working with us on this. And I know that we've got a couple of plans that we submitted that kind of show the existing cut through situation and what our proposal. I don't know if you could bring those up. Those might be helpful for the purposes of the conversation. And Ron, are you available to walk through that?
Brady has all the items if you want to put that up.
Yeah. So this is Ron Mueller, traffic consultant for the project. We've, as Mark's mentioned, spent a good amount of time with staff and with Sergeant McDonough talking about how do we address the cut-through issue. As you, I'm sure, all know, many, many years ago, the cut-through was an issue, and a barrier was placed, as is shown on this diagram right here, to try to prevent cut-through traffic. What that has resulted in, I'm not sure it's reduced cut-through traffic. I don't know the answer to that, but in any event, cut-through traffic now travels along the portion through the site as marked in the heavy red line. So essentially, cut-through traffic is right now traveling through an area right by Lexington Street where you have no traffic control between various approaches. You have a wide open sea of pavement. You have a very long and straight shot down a drive aisle that tends to increase travel speeds for people who are not looking for a parking spot. Then you have a couple of turns through a heavily used portion of the parking lot until they finally arrive at the back of the Kohl's building to get out to Meadow Road. Based on discussions with Sergeant McDonough, he said that he's done some research on accidents within the Kohl's parking lot and has come and has found that there are quite a bit more accidents happening within this Kohl's parking lot than you would typically see at other retail sites. And that could very well be the result of this existing cut-through traffic that's happening here, where, as you can see on this plan, they're actually driving along 97 existing parking spaces through the lot, where speeds are likely to be faster than you would want them to be, and that can very well cause some of these accidents. Brady, if you can go to the next slide, the proposed one. So we've talked about, do we continue to have that barrier there? Do we make it one way or the other, as we've presented on earlier versions of the site plan? And my recommendation, and one which I believe Sergeant McDonough has agreed with, is that if we can't stop the cut-through traffic, then let's accommodate the cut-through traffic as best as we can. And by that, I mean rerouted so that it's along the perimeter of the parking lot, affects the least number of parking spaces. In this case, it would affect 56 parking spaces as opposed to the existing route that affects 97 spaces. There are a number of turns required that will then have good traffic control. In other words, actual stop lines and stop signs installed, raised islands installed in areas that do not currently exist, and have no longer a long straight stretch of travel route where speeds can increase. In fact, what we're already also proposing on this plan, it says potential additional speed bump locations. That was, the word potential was in there because at the time I prepared this plan, we weren't sure whether or not Kohl's or the owner of the center of the site would agree to that. I believe they have agreed to installing speed humps at these locations now. So I believe allowing cut-through traffic along the perimeter of the road, which is not to say that we're encouraging it, but at least if it's going to happen regardless, then let's make it as safe as we can by not having long straight shots, by having the proper traffic control, by reducing the speeds through speed humps, and make it a safer situation. That's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we should have the board discuss this whole traffic pattern before we move on to the other changes on the property. Does that make sense to you, Mark?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, some of the other changes do, integrate.
All right, then let's set them all now.
Okay. Yeah, it might be more efficient perhaps to talk.
Sure.
Phil Henry, our civil engineer, I know submitted revised plans last week that reflect some other modifications. And Phil, would you be able to just talk about those, the speed table, crosswalk, the other crosswalk improvements that have been made, and the other things? Phil?
Sorry, I was on mute. I was talking to myself. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Brady, we could either go to the site plan or we could even work off of this one, whatever you prefer. Okay. So
whichever one is easiest for you.
Say it again.
Whichever one works best for you.
Okay, let's stay on this one for now. So since everyone is familiar with this plan, a few other, I guess, pedestrian and vehicular site improvements that we've incorporated was we added a speed table crosswalk at the drive-through entry. So that is at the if you recall, we had a lengthy discussion at the last hearing about how to better treat the crosswalk and how to better perhaps protect it from vehicles and potential speeding vehicles. So what we've introduced is we've left the crosswalk striping piano key. It is now symbolized as opposed to two straight lines, and you can see that right where that mouse that mouse hand is. And essentially, what this is you over a 10-foot section, you ramp up 3 inches to a level landing of about 8 to 10 feet wide, and then you ramp back down the 3 inches on the opposite side. So it's essentially a speed bump, but it's intended to I guess further deter vehicles from moving at higher rates of speed. And keep in mind that you're probably talking about lower rates of speed as is in the parking lot. But we really tried to address this issue because we've all spoke a lot about it at the last hearing. So that was one crosswalk improvement that we incorporated. We actually incorporated another crosswalk at the exiting part of the ATM drive-through. If you could just shift up there. Yep, exactly. So right in front of the stop bar, there's another crosswalk, piano key symbol, and we actually added a sidewalk on the west side of the Lexington Street curb cut that is connecting to the Lexington Street sidewalk. So now there's two means of accessing the site in that area by foot. And we did not add
Is there any way to make that bigger so we can, is that impossible?
Yeah, I can zoom in for you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. I can't see it, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Brady. So as you can see there, that crosswalk is, I'll call it an at-grade crosswalk. There's no speed hump incorporated there because it's downstream of a stopped condition. So therefore, we feel that that's a very safe maneuver there, or people walking on foot there. And as I was saying, there's a sidewalk connecting the crosswalk to the Lexington Street sidewalk, but also we've extended the sidewalk on the opposite side, or the west side of that crosswalk, that eventually extends on the northerly side of that building, of the new bank building. So that was another site element that we incorporated. I guess our thinking was that to split up the pedestrian access, and also folks that are coming from Lexington Street do not need to walk down to the intersection to get into the site. There's simply two means of access by foot.
Phil, if I can also interject, I think this also addresses some of the concerns that the board members expressed about the Islamic Center parking on this site and how they would safely access by foot and back out to Lexington Street. So I think this actually is a very big improvement over existing conditions.
Thank you. This is Barbara. So if I understand correctly, the crosswalk that was on the plan the last time is now one of those platform crosswalks. Like we have,
Yeah.
we have some of those at the mall. And then you've added a crosswalk at the end of the drive-through and across the entrance to Lexington Street. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you look where the hand is on the mouse right there, that's the new crosswalk that we introduced. We've also introduced a crosswalk across the Lexington Street curb cut, as we did the main access on Mall Road as well. So, we really tried to listen to the board's comments regarding not only vehicular traffic, but also foot traffic. So we tried to address that.
I understand. Thanks for clarifying. And thanks for making that bigger, Brady.
All right, so should I continue on some of the other site improvements?
Yes, please.
We also committed to adding stop signs at all on-site intersections and existing curb cuts. So for the most part, we had this in the plan, although there were maybe a 2 or 3 internal intersections and curb cuts that did not have stop signs. So we've committed to putting stop signs essentially everywhere where there's an intersection, both internal to the site and where it meets a street.
And those are marked by those red diamonds on this plan.
Okay.
That's a lot of stop signs.
And raised islands. So all of those locations where stop signs are shown are also locations of proposed landscaped islands.
Okay. Okay.
We also called for all of the existing stop bar and stop lettering to be refreshed. So not only are we adding stop bars and stop lettering signs or stop letterings where we're adding stop signs, but we're also calling for the existing to be refreshed. So at the end of the project, they'll all have the same freshness, if you will.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron. You want to say something?
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure whether you were done, but just wanted to also point out, and we've discussed this before, that we are improving sight lines both at the Lexington Street exit and at the Meadow Road exit by trimming back or removing some of the existing vegetation that is currently limiting sight lines. So we'll be improving safety for traffic to exit the site at both locations.
Thank you. And speaking of landscaping, that's a good segue, Ron. Brady, is there any way you can get us to the landscape plan? Those are the remaining site improvements that I wanted to review.
Is that within the site plans that you sent over?
Yep. So you're on sheet 4. So go to sheet 8, I believe. And then if you don't mind just zooming in for everybody's benefit.
Not at all. All right.
Okay.
How's that?
Perfect. That's actually ideal. So a number of changes that we made to the landscape plan. First, in no particular order, we've eliminated the plantings or the arborvitae around the ATM. In talking with citizens, they said we don't need anything there for, especially for security purposes. So we've eliminated that altogether. We also had a comment about adding some vegetation around the transformer. So as you can see, we've added rhododendrons around the transformer so that they're in a protected fashion, particularly from the street side and Lexington Street curb cut. We also wanted to add some flowers and plants on the 2 westerly pie-shaped curb ends on the left side of the bank. So both north and south, those pie-shaped islands, if you move, Brady, just further to the left. Yep. Keep going. Right. Yeah, that one and the one north of the building, those were just proposed to be lawn grass. We've added the same mix of flowering and plantings and grasses as we've proposed throughout the site. We've also we marked the existing trees to be removed, and we've called for the plans for those trees to be transplanted at the owner's direction. So what I envision is at our pre-construction meeting, having a discussion about where we can move those trees before they're actually disturbed. So I hope that that achieves the direction and the goal that was from the board. I guess we're open, but I thought it best to I guess leave it so that we're on site, everybody's on site, and we could have a discussion where best to put those. And then we also added some plantings on the if you can go directly south of the building, there's seven shrubs there. We added some shrubbery, some yews that will grow up to 3 or 4 feet. The intention there is, as folks are driving in to for the drive-through for the ATM, for that brief moment before they veer northeast, their headlights are probably directing in the same direction or the opposite direction as vehicles traveling westbound on Lexington Street. So the idea there is to have some buffering there, vegetated buffering, to deter those headlights from dueling for that particular moment in time. And then that was all the items that I had. We of course we added minor details where appropriate in the detail sheets, but that's not as exciting to talk to about these changes. So I won't bore you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vaughn, is there anything else?
I think that's it, Madam Chair. I hope that you and the board can see that we really did take under advisement the comments that were raised before in terms of improving all these aspects of the project. And I do think it's going to be a significant improvement over what's out there today, and an optimal reuse of this location in terms of activating it, but not in a manner that is causing too much activity that's problematic. So, but yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Before I turn it over to the board, Kristen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to mention 2 things. I was wondering if they wanted to show the rendering, which they did submit, that I think actually really did give a good picture of the site, as well as the landscaping. I think that might help illustrate the site itself. And then we did leave an open-ended question at the last meeting about curbing. And they did put an exhibit together to talk through that, just the different types, because I do have a question mark in the decision as to curbing where, what, when. So just wanted to make sure we touched upon that tonight among the board. Okay. So Mark, I don't know if you want to have someone to talk through the renderings a little bit before we.
Yeah,
Barbara goes to the board.
Yeah, this is the rendering that had been required. I forgot about this. I'm glad you reminded me, Chris. This is the rendering that had been requested of what it would look like from the Mall Road, Lexington Street intersection, if you would. So I think everyone can see how we're what angle we're looking at here. So we'd be looking looking north at the building right here, with the Lexington Street curb cut being on the right-hand side. So I think you can, see this obviously reflects the architectural changes that have been made to the building to provide some colonial elements, as the board had requested, particularly along the street frontage there. And also it reflects the plantings that would be provided and added along there. So I think it's a, you know, handsome building. I think it would be a nice addition to this corner, and I think that the render helps reflect that. So, and then I think there is, I don't know if Bill.
Yeah, Mark, this is Bill Lorigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we turn to the bird's eye view, it probably gives an even better idea of that crosswalk, how the pedestrian is being protected, and then the plantings along the sidewalks. I think that really helps out. Let everybody know how it's really going to look.
Right, and this helps show too the where the landscaping widens out a little bit too at the Lexington Street curb cut, where, you know, it narrows down but then widens out again. So there's a nice buffer there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's see if the board has questions. Joe, would you like to ask anything or weigh in?
Sure. Yeah, just I don't know if what anyone's thoughts are on that. I still going back to that cut-through area, and I just kind of think it's a cut-through, right? I mean, so we're kind of still making it actually accommodating a cut-through. You know, where I'm not sure we necessarily should be accommodating the cut-through, but that's one thing. Another thing is, I don't know the shape of that parking lot, but, you know, there's going to be an awful lot of painting of stop lines and other things going on in there. And I'm wondering if, you know, I know you're going to paint them so that they're more visible, but I'm wondering if we could have them seal coat the whole thing first, so that all of these stop lines are going to stick out like a sore thumb, and I think it would create a much cleaner look as far as the ability to see the stop lines and all of that. I like the landscaping, looks nice. The building looks, really looks nice. My big concern is that accommodating a cut through, and that's kind of a little. I don't necessarily know if I have my arms around that one fully. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah. Well, all I was going to say on the cut through, Joe, is, and this is Mark. We did spend a lot of time with Sergeant McDonough to talk about it, and I think, there's no way to prohibit or prevent it from happening. So really, what we're trying to do, as Ron Mueller articulated, is not to encourage it, but if it's going to continue to happen, to make sure it happens in the safest manner possible, which would be along the perimeter of the site. We've added the speed humps to make sure that it's not happening at a high rate of speed, to still make it, less convenient for people to want to do it. So it's not going to be a racetrack or anything, but the feeling is that if we leave it the way it is, I think that the consensus is that it would probably be, more dangerous, because you're having it go through the parking lot where that accident history has been. So we're not trying to encourage it. That's not what this plan does, but I think it's just meant to, for those that are going to do it, make it as safe as possible, so it's not interfering with the main parking field.
Right. So, Mark, how many on that stretch of cut through? How many speed tables and stop signs? And it's hard for me to the rendering. Just I don't know if I kind of gets diluted a little bit when I look at this design here. So, did they try to coming from Great Meadow there and coming through? Is there actually a stop? It comes to a stop?
It's 4.
Yeah. If you actually, Brady, if you can zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's 4 stop signs.
and this is Ron Mueller. So as you're coming from Meadow Road through the site, there's a speed bump existing right at the northeast corner of the Coles building. Then you would proceed along the perimeter of the site. You get to what is currently a stop condition, but there's no stop sign because there's no curbing there, no landscape island. Where you see that triangle, that red diamond, we'll be installing a raised landscaped island with a
Is there any
stop
way to
sign.
point these out? Because I can't follow it.
Landscaped island and stop sign location. So if you're coming from Meadow Road, that'll be a stop you have to go through. So you will be required to stop. Then you continue straight through around the bend, and right where Brady has his hand now is where is a speed hump proposed to slow down any traffic that is traveling in that area, exactly right there. Then you continue on and you come to another stop sign location with a landscaped island, which does not currently exist. You make a left turn at that point. You continue along the perimeter of the site to another proposed speed hump location right there. And then you continue on to another stop sign on a proposed landscaped island right there, where you then make a left turn again and then exit out onto Lexington Street.
So coming from Great Meadow Road, none of that is going to be striped as a roadway.
It will all be striped.
So you're literally going to put a center lane.
No.
There's an existing. I'm sorry. There's an existing centerline striping from the front of the Coles building to the first stop sign.
From the front of the Coles building.
From the front of the correct. From the front of the Coles building, where you come around the rear of the site, exactly where Brady's hand is right now. From there to the first stop sign is an existing centerline striping, which will be maintained.
So I'm coming in off of Great Meadow Road, right?
Yep.
So as I enter from Great Meadow, what's that going to look like to me right there?
That won't change. That'll be exactly the same as it is today.
Right. There's no striping, right?
There is striping. Is
there a center stripe? Is there a center lane? A center line?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so that has a center line all the way from Great Meadow to where right now?
Not all the way from Great Meadow, only from the northeast corner of the Coles building to the first stop sign. Exactly, right there. Yep.
Right. So the northeast. Right. So that's what I'm saying. There's no stripe as you enter from Great Meadow.
Not as you enter from Great Meadow, correct.
Right. That was my question originally. So that's what I'm saying. So right now it's got two lines of traffic going in each direction. We're going to accommodate that. And right now it's basically just a parking lot. Right. So there's no line, there's no delineation of where you're supposed to be going on to Great Meadow or coming off of Great Meadow or any of that from at that point. Correct?
Correct. But that's no different than the existing condition, and that's also not the.
Well, it isn't, but we're not making a through lane. I mean, right now the existing condition doesn't have a throughway. Right? So we're now creating a throughway. Right? We're eliminating that dead end.
We're not creating a throughway per se. We're just allowing if we can't stop cut through traffic, which apparently we can't. I mean, the town and the landowner have tried this now for the past 20 years through measures such as that existing barrier. And that hasn't deterred cut-through traffic. What it's done is make cut-through traffic go through the center of the parking lot where there's a lot of activity, and that's resulted in a lot of accidents. So all we're trying to do to make things better and safer is we're going if we can't stop it, which apparently we can't, because as many board members have acknowledged, they themselves do it, then let's do it in an area where we have the least amount of activity, where we can control speeds, where we can control the turning movements, and make it as safe as we possibly can. The area on the side of the Coles building that you mentioned before is the least traveled area, if you will. There's the least amount of activity on the site, and I would hazard a guess, although I don't know that for a fact, is that the accident research that Sergeant McDonough has done would probably show you that that's not where the accidents are happening. Where the accidents are currently happening is likely in the main parking field where cut-through traffic right now has to go through.
Well, that's right. But in other words, if we're going to address this, let's address it the whole way. In my opinion, let's address it the full length of this whole cut-through. Right? I mean, we're going to be accommodating them on a road instead of making them go through the parking lot. So it now kind of becomes a road, right? And I'm just concerned about, the beginning piece of this where Great Meadow comes in. You got people coming from Coles and heading out Great Meadow. You got cars going in, and now people are going to start to realize this is actually doesn't look like a cut through anymore. It just looks like kind of looks like a roadway going through here instead of a cut through a parking lot, right? So I'm wondering, you're creating a kind of a roadway at one particular point, but you're kind of ignoring the other piece of it. And I'm just wondering if maybe we should be addressing the whole thing together, the whole cut through together, all together, instead of addressing it after a certain point.
If the board feels that we should add a centerline striping along the side of the Coles building to try to make that part of the site safer as well, we can certainly do that. I'm not arguing that point. I'm questioning the need for it because, like I said, that's the least used portion of the site. In fact, it's probably mostly used by cut-through traffic. And
exactly.
No private trailer trucks. Right. But I mean,
yeah, I mean that's exactly right. But I want these people to know, because again, we are, I'm not saying we are definitely by this change right here, we are somewhat accommodating this cut through, but we're kind of ignoring the beginning part of the cut through, and basically it's every man for himself, or every woman for himself, as far as which side of the road they're going to be driving on in that piece of the cut-through. And then all of a sudden we pick it up as a cut-through halfway through the parking lot. I would like to kind of, and I may be just one voice in this thing, but if I'm going to address this cut-through and accommodate the cut-through, then I want to make sure it's going to be safe from the beginning to the end, or vice versa, from the end to the beginning, whichever way you're coming and cutting through. I want to make sure that there's a delineation of this thing, so people aren't coming in and leaving and entering and leaving on Great Meadow Road and not knowing which side of the road they're supposed to be on.
Like I said, we can certainly add that feature to the plan, or could be a condition for approval, I would imagine. I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I can't imagine that with all the line striping improvements that they're proposing within the parking lot, that this would break the bank.
So, Joe, this is Kristen. Just to point out in this draft decision, we do have a condition that gets to this point of separation, but slowing down of any cut-through traffic, and measures to do that, such as the speed hump, textural changes, as well as the table discussed, and stop measures, and it's to be reviewed and approved in consultation with the chairman, the safety officer, and myself. So this plan suggests some changes, but we want to make sure that they are exactly implemented in the stop conditions, as well as where the tables are, as well as what you're talking about all the way out to Great Meadow Road. So in terms of that condition, we can add that in terms of the evaluation to look at if striping it in a way to add that delineation will make it safer, we can certainly add it, and that can be added to the condition as we continue to
Well, in
explore
the
those
striping,
safety
Kristen,
implementation.
yeah, I mean, the striping, and then once you have that striping coming from Great Meadow, then you can, because this rendering right here doesn't show me stop signs in that direction, right? So, you know, stop signs can be implemented at first from that Great Meadow. If you come in from that direction, and there's people entering from Kohl's, you know, the drive lane closest to Kohl's store, they're entering that cut through. You know, then we can almost make intersections at each one of these. You know, at each one of these Kohl's drive lanes that enter into that cut through.
Mhm.
So I mean, you know, and now we don't have that. So it's kind of a little bit of mayhem until we get down to here, and then all of a sudden we start implementing stop signs and speed tables and things like that. But the first part of it, we really don't address that, and that piece of it, you know, is going to be. I think there's, you know, there's going to be the existing traffic from Kohl's, but I think there's going to be additional traffic, you know, with this whole thing going on. So I think, you know, I even closer to Kohl's, I think we need to address that cut through and acknowledge that there are drive lanes, multiple drive lanes going into that cut through from the Kohl's piece of the parking lot.
I would suggest, this is Ron Mueller again, I would suggest if the board is generally leaning towards this, that a condition for approval be to add centerline striping pretty much in the location where this red line is shown right now, thereabouts, and a stop bar and stop sign at the northeast corner of the Kohl's building.
Right, and any drive line and every drive aisle from that point going towards the bank that enters into that. If there are other ones, if there are other drive aisles entering into that cut through, then that same type of setup be implemented at every one of those.
And it is, as shown right now.
Okay.
Yep. So that's kind of my, you know, again, I hear what Bill had said early on, and I kind of, you know, I'm torn on that. I think we are accommodating it, and I think it's going to be crucial that the signage and speed tables be implemented and placed in the right places for this to really work. If not, I would be, rather than creating more of an invited drive-through, that I'd say cut it off altogether instead of the dead end the way it was. I would have said, create the dead end at the Great Pines end of that and kind of bring it through the parking lot. But I'm fine with keeping it on this road and keeping it away from the parking lot. I just want to make sure that it's the entrance onto this cut through, the entrance and exit from Lexington Street all the way to Great Pines is going to be safe. And that includes, the piece next to Kohl's as well.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
It was definitely from Lexington to Great Meadow, just to understand the movements are happening. And as I mentioned, this is Kristen, and as I mentioned in the meeting preview, that in 2002 we went through the folder and it was discussed, to try to the curb was put in to deter, but what happened was instead it just forced people that were cutting through and continued to cut through to the center of the parking lot where everyone was, and to congestion points. So we wanted to try to take a look at that and then not continue to kind of force everyone into that connection point, but separate. But if we're going to separate, we needed to drastically slow down traffic.
But you know what the other thing, Kristen, the other thing that it does is they put in these, they don't put center lines and then they put speed bumps in, and it forces people to drive around the speed bump. So if you have a center line in there, no one's driving around the speed bumps or the speed humps or the speed tables or anything like that. You've got delineation that prevents people from going around those speed because that's what they do. They avoid the speed bumps. They drive around them.
Yeah,
And there's no delineation right now, so people are just driving all over the place to get around the speed bumps.
Yeah, Joe, this is Bill. You're right, because if you look in that area that's right to the side of the building heading towards Meadow Road, and that speed bump there, I practiced my driving when I was a kid, right, because we lived right up the street. So you're absolutely right. The technique there is to swerve around that speed bump and get into where that middle of the speed bump is to avoid it.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right. So I've been doing that.
Even if they do it with two wheels, right? Even if they just avoid it with two wheels instead. So two wheels go over instead of four wheels, they think they accomplished something, right? So
exactly right.
It's always to avoid. And it's almost mayhem there because there's no delineation. There's no, people come.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing. I think we're probably all going to agree that should be properly striped and have the stop sign at that corner of the building and
the speed bump replaced with an alternative that works. And that's in the decision, to replace that speed bump with an alternative measure to slow traffic.
Right. Okay. So, Joe, do you have anything else?
No, I like the changes. I like some of the things they've done in there. I like the landscape. I like the building. I think it's gonna. I mean, actually, visually, it would be I think an enhancement to that area.
Okay, thank you. Well, since you had started the conversation, talking about this, why don't you jump in and see if there's anything else you have that you want to add, or questions you have?
Barbara, so I think you're alluding to that. I cut in the conversation, so I apologize for that. So
I didn't do it that way.
Thank you for accommodating. So yeah, when Joe's talking about that, I'm looking closer and I like where there should be a stop sign in the corner. I'm pointing at the screen, but right at the corner of the Coles building to be a stop sign coming in from Meadow Road. And then you've got the next one, you get the next one, you get the next one. So I start to go back the other way. And it says, so I'm coming from Lexington Street and I'm cutting through, which I do on a minute. And, again, because I grew up there and I've been through it 1,000 times. And I'm going to do it every time to avoid that light at the bottom of Coles to get over to Meadow Road. So if you go down that way, you're coming across and you bear the right along the side of the parking lot, heading from Lexington Street to Meadow Road. And then you get down to the near where you're at snow storage. Okay, so the people that are coming through that parking lot don't have a stop sign there on snow storage. So if, let's say I'm going through the parking lot from left to right in intersection with our thruway there. So I'm not stopping, nor is that end of the parking lot stopped. So I don't know if we put a stop sign for the folks there, where it would be right at the E of storage, right in that area, or do we put one for our folks heading from Lexington Street to Meadow Road? You put one there for, there's a speed bump there, and should somebody stop there in that intersection? Then I go down a little further and I get to the next intersection, past the curve and right up kind of at the narrows, keep on going right there. Now I've got another intersection and the people that are coming down that way have a stop sign earlier on, but they don't have it right at the spot there that they should be stopped. Or should we stop that traffic again coming Lexington to Meadow Road? And that's a good stopping area just to slow again. Maybe depending who you want to have the deleting traffic on, then keep on going, and now you're getting to a point where you're saying, okay, I'm keep on going, now I'm free, but there's a non-controlled intersection right there, right where that other traffic comes in from the spot. If I'm coming up from Mall Road straight through to take a left on Meadow, I don't need to stop there, right? There's no stop sign there. And then my conflicting traffic coming from Lexington Street to Meadow Road is also not conflicting, doesn't have a stop sign there. So I think one of us should have it.
So this is Phil. I could address this. There are two proposed stop signs along this route. There is one at the main driveway as you come in from Mall Road all the way north. There's a stop sign just left of the speed bump. And then there's another stop sign where Brady's Mouse is right there. Does that answer your question, sir? I think you're on mute.
Whoever muted me, don't mute me yet. So, so I got my little speaker here that I mute myself at. So, so we got one at the hand, and then where is the other one that you said?
Yeah, so Brady, if you move east along that red line, keep going, right there.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. There should be one right there. Where'd it go?
Yep. Okay. So those are going to be added. It's going to be moved up a little bit. It's going to be moved west a little bit, right?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah, right at the edge of that parking space.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the only other notes I had on that, yeah, I'm looking at lighting at that crosswalk. Is there going to be lighting for a pedestrian at that crosswalk? At the back side of the drive?
Yep, there's actually there's a number of site lights, and there's actually a site light right next to each of the new crosswalks that we're proposing at each end of the drive-through.
And just what they look like, are they looking kind of more colonial in aspect to go with the building, or what are they looking like?
I believe they're like the very low profile. I guess they used to call them shoebox lighting, but they're more like a Cobra head now. They're very low profile square.
I know we've done a nice job with the lighting along Mall Road. If you look at that, that looks like down lighting. That looks really nice. I wonder if we can make it a bit more architectural to go with the building with those lights.
This is Bill Lorgan. Which lights are we talking about?
These are ones near the crosswalks.
On the poles?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they're appropriate for the parking lot right now. The low profile LED lights that they're on lower poles are 20 feet high.
So let me maybe we can take your next trip down the Mall Road and see what we did to change the lighting along the Mall Road. It's kind of like architecturally, they have gooseneck lighting as you kind of go down there. So spend a lot of time and effort and resources to all the folks that have businesses on there. So I think kind of a continuation of that as you kind of get into kind of a more architecturally pleasing type of light, maybe to go along with that building, how we requested a little more colonial, we can get a little more colonial type of lighting there.
And I guess I was looking at it as more of trying to keep in context of the whole parking lot rather than trying to change the style of the lighting just for our building.
Yeah. So I see it a little differently. So I come in and I'm walking and I think of myself as a pedestrian instead of a parking lot. And as you go through that and you put all sorts of great landscaping in, and then you're lighting for your pedestrian, it would be more kind of a, more of a architecturally pleasing type of light versus an industrial parking lot light. So now you're kind of, walking kind of into your building and it's more of pleasing and more of kind of a park setting I think you tried to do. That's just my 2 cents. I'm just one member of the board on that. The other question I think is more for staff, and that is with regard to section 2H is with regard to the bollards. You have them muted in color or black. I think we should really keep it black and not have an option for muted color. They could be a muted yellow, which I think is probably, again, not playing into what we would like that building to look like. And again, think of it more of a park setting, more of an inviting building, inviting, which I think is the intent of what we're trying to get at here.
I don't have any issue with black. I just wanted to make sure they weren't bright yellow like some other issues we've had.
Yeah, so muted in color, I think it probably allows for some interpretation to that, and we always get into difficulty with interpretation of language. So this place, black and white is probably better than some interpretation. And then with regard to the maybe the materials, and I know that's kind of difficult here, but what I don't want to see is a black plastic cone going over a yellow bollard, cement bollard. So I think what we did over in over at the self-storage, or at least partially over at the self-storage, where it looks, maybe you can get those bollards to actually match the lighting. You know what I'm saying? It's more of a classic versus making it just a parking lot. So you kind of get my drift on here of saying, yeah, you can make it look like a parking lot, but I think, overall for the bank itself, to make it look inviting, again, to activate that corner instead of having, plain old balls, you have some that really look nice, and you have the lighting that might match to that, and, some sort of nice finished metal black.
Yeah, at the self-storage, you talked about not just the plastic cover, but a more decorative that looked more kind of like a cast iron shape.
Yeah.
Wasn't, but looked more in that direction.
But the one I think that Josh gave to me before was a plastic version of that. I think we want to stay away, even from cheap materials like that, just from a bank standpoint, that's probably not the best look you want to have there. And then just, I think just overall with the conversation with the police officer, and it's nice that, we're talking about there's more accidents there than other places. I think what we miss here, and from a data standpoint, is actually, at least I haven't seen any of it, but where in the parking lot are the accidents? I don't think they have that information with regards to that granularity. So you can say, hey, here's where they're all happening, and here's the pinch points. And I think when everybody's suggesting that they're happening somewhere, and we believe that this is the solution, I always would look for data on that versus just assuming that. And then you can get to the true pinch points. But I don't think the police have the exact locations where in the parking lot those accidents are happening, which is a shame. Because I think that would really help out this and give us some data there.
I will say, this is Kristen, I will say that it's been an area of high crashes. I'm sure there's others around the site, but that central aisle from Burlington Mall Road coming in and others coming through the site have been on kind of those two accesses, that access has been a major area of crash.
And that's good to see. Something what we call in the data area is called a measle diagram. So you actually have this, and then you put asterisks of where those are actually happening. So that's real data, and I know anecdotally they might have that, and everyone's memory's great on that. So maybe kind of maybe you can, when you start to sit down with these guys on that in the future, they can have these little measle diagrams that would really help with these exactly happening. That's what I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Paul Raymond, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have questions, but I have a lot of comments.
Okay.
So I've been listening to everybody else. No, I have a considerable amount of experience as far as this cut-through is concerned, because in the wintertime, I go walk with them all. I know I see you there walking with them all. I have to get my donkey afterwards, so I come down, zip around Lexington Street and through this parking lot, up Meadow Road and up at the Donkeys, and then home. So I've spent a lot of time. And from time to time, I've said, as I'm playing Dodgem in the Kohl's parking lot, why don't they just put a street along the perimeter next to our wetlands so that the cut-through traffic can have a good time? They have a nice cut-through. They don't have to worry about the rest of the traffic. And to me, traffic is like water. It flows where it's easiest to go, and it flows where it flows. And to me, this is a good example of what's called cooperating with the inevitable. Because the police expert says it's inevitable. People are going to cut through there. How can we cooperate with them? This is the best way to do it. I love it. And as far as Meadow Road is concerned, I very rarely encountered a car. The only thing, when you get out through the parking lot, heading towards Meadow Road, occasionally you'll see our car coming in, but people, as far as I have ever observed, don't tend to use that. And the problem is that when you get to the corner of Coles, there's hardly room for two cars, so you don't need a stop sign there. As far as I depend upon the traffic officer, because I think this is exactly what we should do. And I also I don't want to micromanage and tell him, look, I want 2 stop signs here and 1 stop sign there and so forth. This is his plan. And if in fact it ends up with a lot of speeding and other things, he'll recognize that. And I'm confident will propose solutions to it. So those are my comments. I think it's a great idea because I can just come right off Lexington Street. You could even call it Perimeter Road because it's on the perimeter, or Coles Avenue, or whatever. But you'd have the nice road going through there, and you don't have to worry about the rest of the traffic at Coles. And I think very little traffic will use that to go into the Coles parking lot or go very far in, because they'll come in, and as soon as they get into the parking lot, they'll take a left ahead to go down and find a place to park. But thank you for your attention. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, I think who's left? Mike. Mike Espaillo, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm only one voice, and I'm still stuck on, I know that
Peter Capola speed bump beside Coles, as we used to call it, to try and actually keep people from cutting through, period. We thought we'd make it so difficult that it was easier to go out onto Mall Road, but obviously, who knows? So I really am looking forward to seeing this happen this way, and I think it's a good idea. I think Joe's suggestion of a center stripe, especially all the way, makes sense. Definitely the stop sign at the northeast corner of the building, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's going to be a lot better. I appreciate the changes that the applicant has made to the building, to the landscaping. I think it's probably, and I haven't said this in a long time, probably worth the 2 or 3 or 4 3 meetings, I guess, we've spent on this, because we ended up with a better product. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Barbara here. So the only thing I have to say about the cut through is I think you ruined my cut through, because with all those speed bumps and stop signs, I'm going to have to find another way to go now, because that's not going to be fast enough for me. So I think you did a good job slowing everybody down. That's all I have to say about that. I have a question about the trees. When I went down there earlier today, I noticed the 8 trees that were flagged to be taken down, and 6 of them were clearly where the building is, and 2 of them were a little bit further down, closer to the center of the parking lot. And I was wondering why those 2 are being removed, because they didn't seem like they were that close to your project.
Yeah, so that is where we're incorporating those independent islands that are housing the stop signs and the. So what I figured was just by virtue of the installation, those are going to get disturbed, but we're putting new ones back in there after the fact.
Okay, all right, thank you. I figured there was a reason, I just didn't know what it was. Thank you. And then I just wanted, because it
crosswalk, so which is a typical mitigation measure for when you have conflicts with pedestrian and vehicles. So if we were to introduce a table there, we would be ponding water in the drive-through, and we wouldn't be able to get that water out.
Okay, so it's painted stop, and there's a stop sign at the end of that.
That's correct.
Drive.
Yeah, I think the image that we see here, depicts that as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those were my only questions. I think you listened and you've created a nice product. Thank you. All right, does anybody else have any questions before I ask if there's someone else in the listening audience?
Madam Chair, this is Ernie. I have another point that I forgot, and that's the vertical granite curbing on at least the newly proposed islands. And except if the curbing is cast with a sidewalk. In other words, if it's cast.
Sorry about that.
I don't know how my fellow board members feel about that, but I think that's what we've done in the past, and I think I'd like to continue that, especially with these small islands. I can see the tips of them getting knocked off pretty easily with a loader or some heavy equipment, snow equipment in there.
I could certainly agree to that.
I could as well. Thank you, Ernie.
Oh, Ernie, what do you, this is Mark, just so I'm clear what you're asking for where would the additional vertical be?
Any new islands, Mark, that aren't already vertical granite curbing? Should be vertical granite curbing and concrete curbing to be used, new concrete curbing to be used only where it's cast with a sidewalk, as we've done in previous projects. Do you follow what I'm saying? Am I confusing you? I'm sorry.
Well, so I think we're doing the monolithic where the sidewalks are.
Right.
Is that correct,
Right.
Phil?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
With oranges.
Right.
Yep.
So,
See, the premise being monolithically poured concrete curbing with the sidewalk is I mean, you can still take a little piece out of it, but you can't rip it apart too easily unless you take the whole sidewalk with you. But with granite, especially in those new islands, those small islands, I can see those being easily destroyed.
So, Mr. Covino, so are you looking at the image on the screen?
Yes, I am.
So there is the green, the highlighted green areas are the proposed, currently the proposed precast concrete. So I'm sure you realize, but I want to make the distinction that this is a precast concrete, which will be installed similar to granite curb. This is not extruded or bituminous curb that usually gets pasted onto the binder.
Right. I do understand that, but I
Okay.
also know from experience and in other ways that vertical granite curbing with a 6-inch reveal and 18 inches buried in the ground in concrete is going to be there in 20 years. Where the concrete, I've replaced a lot of concrete curbing.
So are you saying, so the small islands that are left of the building or west of the bank, that's what you're proposing to have as vertical granite?
I would say any of the new islands you're installing should be vertical granite curbing.
Okay, so everything green here, you want to see as granite?
I do. I don't know how my fellow board members feel, but yes, I would like to see it that way.
yeah, I think
The owner will thank us over 20 years, believe me. Good, Mark.
Okay,
no, I
thank
think
you.
the rationale I think the reason for the green being concrete was that it basically matches the concrete that's out there now, because that's the curbing that's in the parking lot. The lawn landscape island, within those parking fields, that's all concrete curbing today. Phil, is that right? So I think you were looking to just match it in kind, but with obviously newer condition.
If I can ask a question, then everything I see in green on this plan is New Island, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. And it looks like the majority of them, Mark, are new islands, are they not? At least in the area of the majority.
Well, yes, the horizontal curb as you go across the site or perpendicular with the parking spaces are proposed to remain as is. So, I guess, in an effort to make a last-ditch effort on maintaining the material, for consistency purposes, that's what we chose. But it's obviously up for discussion. Yes.
Yeah, I'd say that vertical granite curbing is better and probably should be used.
Yeah, I agree with Ernie.
Thanks, Joe.
Madam Chair, Paul Raymond.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with the proponent is saying that the concrete's nice because it matches the buildings and so forth. to me, vertical granite matches with everything. And when I'm long gone, they'll still be there, but concrete just doesn't stand up. And consider the amount of plowing that's going to be in the, you know, you don't always get experts driving plows. So, and Ernie, I'm sure, has had experience with people that didn't know what they were doing that worked for him. I once had somebody who's well known in town tell me he took out like 30 feet of concrete one time with a front end loader when he was supposed to be plowing. So I would like to see vertical granite there too.
Okay, it sounds like a majority of the board is in favor of vertical granite. So if you can find your way clear to give us that, I think we would be very happy to hear that.
I just want to clarify though that so with the monolithic pour concrete, that's fine. And then where Concom has requested sloped, we should allow for that.
Yes, it's just the green part on this plan.
That's how it reads in your draft right now.
Okay, great. So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the listening or viewing audience that wants to comment or have a question?
Hi, Barbara. This is Sherry. I have a question.
Okay.
It's actually more of just for the board members to think about, as far as you mentioned, the way you cut through now. So if they could, Brady could bring back up the map that has the new perimeter road that Paul called it. If you're coming from the Great Meadow Road and you're cutting through, I kind of think that I'm still going to take the same shortcut that I do now. Is before I hit those speed bumps along where it says the potential extra speed bumps, I'm going to take that right, go down the main aisle, and then go right out the other way, the way I still do now. So it's a thought to think about that.
Sherry.
I'm going to have to change the color of my car now, because now everyone knows I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to go over those speed bumps. I'm going to go down the main aisle.
Madam Chair, this is Ron Mueller. If I could respond to that very quickly. What we're proposing are not speed bumps, which is what exists at the northeast corner of the Kohl's building right now. What we're proposing are actually speed humps. And there's a difference in that they are designed for specific speeds at which you can go over those speed humps. A speed bump, you're essentially rolling over, so you're not ruining the axle of your car. Where a speed hump, this particular one, I believe, is designed at 15 miles an hour. So it's a deterrent only in the sense to reduce travel speeds. It's not intended as a deterrent to stay away from this as a cut-through route.
Correct, but I'm going to stay away from those because they are. I'm going to go down the main aisle where there's no speed humps. Those speed humps over at Sun Microsystems are very good at making you slow down. So I'm going to avoid those.
I understand that, Sherry, and I think some people are going to do that, but I do think at least now we have stop signs that they'll have to, for crossing that main drive aisle coming in from Mall Road. I think that right now we don't have that, as I recall. So I think that will help.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because I just wanted people to think about that the way you cut through there now, you will still be able to cut through. You'll avoid the speed humps and you won't have any stop signs. So it'll be a little bit quicker.
There will be stop signs, though. You can see can you see what's on there now? There are stop signs. Once you take that right and then you'll take another left, then you'll have to stop before you cross that drive aisle, which is where a lot of the accidents occurred, according to the police.
Is there a stop sign coming in that main, I don't know directions. So I know the stop signs are coming from, I'm going to go on the map, right to left, but from top to bottom, are they stop signs that way as well?
No stop signs along the main drive aisle from Mall Road.
Correct. So once I take that right into the main aisle, I don't have another stop sign until I get all the way to Lexington Street.
If you're coming from Meadow Road to Lexington, that is correct.
Oh, really?
So now I've avoided two speed humps and all the stop signs.
Right. When I brought up the fact that Cole's entrance right there should have a stop sign, I was actually thinking a three-way stop sign. I was thinking the cars coming from Lexington heading to Great Meadow, or the cars coming from Great Meadow heading to Lexington, and the cars coming from Cole's entering onto that all should have a stop sign.
This is Ron Mueller again. If I hear you correctly, you're saying basically a four-way stop in the middle.
Well, a three-way, because there's no traffic coming from the wetlands, right? So it'd be more a three-way stop, right?
Where are we talking exactly?
On the Cole. Well, I was in particular. I was talking about where Shari says she was going to take a right. That would be into the Coles, right at the Coles, coming from Great Meadow. You just pass the Coles store, and you come to the first drive aisle.
Right there, right where Brady has the hand.
Yep. There's now going to be that's
there will be a stop sign there. Correct.
Right. What I'm talking about is coming from Great Meadow. The intersection that I was talking about was the drive aisle directly in front of Coles as it enters the cut-through.
That's where we said as a condition for approval, we could add another stop sign at that location, correct?
I'm talking about a three-way. I was thinking the cars heading both directions on the cut-through and the car entering from Coles into the cut-through should all have a stop sign. We're not creating a road here. We're trying to create a situation where people can cut through, but we're not looking to create a roadway like a main thoroughfare, right? We're trying to implement as many traffic calming measures as we can through here. Mm-hmm. So I would say in every one of these entrances of drive aisles going on to this cut through should have a three-way stop sign. So people have to stop multiple times going through that whole area. Maybe they'll go around. Maybe they'll jump on maybe they'll decide they don't want to do it and they'll go on to the Mall Road. You know, I mean, the fact is, it really is not, it's not supposed to be a roadway. You know, it's a cut through, and it's not set up to be a roadway.
So what the condition reads, this is Kristen, the condition reads to separate and slow and make it safe for all of the users. So whether or not the three-way stop sign, we have stop control and speed tables and textural changes and other things to be reviewed and approved. I think we can certainly work through adding a three-way stop sign, and if in going through those kind of scenario drills, if that's the safest options we have for all those users. Because I agree that if to what Sherry's saying, there's a way to easily divert. That's not our intention. Our intention is to separate, have people actually use it in a safe way, not to try to get around things that was kind of the issue that we had in the 2002 change, that it didn't really work to deter people. It just worked to get people to go around it, and the going around it was the problem. So I think we just need to look at the menu of options to get to that goal.
We can't lose sight of the fact that it's still a parking lot.
Absolutely.
It's a parking lot. So it's basically pedestrians first, right? I mean, there's going to be pedestrians all over the place around here. So, cars should be crawling through. And that's why we should be having stop signs, three-way stop signs, allowing for pedestrians to have right-of-way no matter which way we're looking here. And if they want to use it as cut-through, that's all well and good. But they should be crawling through that cut-through.
Yep, and they should be crawling through the parking lot and always in the parking lot. So
that's right.
I think that's the goal that we're trying to get to. So if you guys can agree to that point, I think we can work on the tools with the chairman or any of the members of the board as to how those pieces come together exactly.
Right, and in terms of this, I think a three-way stop sign there is fine. It makes sense. That's what it should be. Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak on this? As if not, I think we're probably ready to close the hearing.
Do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on these matters.
Second.
Thank you.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Españo.
Yes.
Member Cavino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Arista Development for special permit pursuant to section 4.3.2.22 drive-through 41111 discharges from man-made structures into the wetlands, 6.1.2.1 non-conforming structures and premises of zoning bylaws at 150 Lexington Street, Burlington, Mass., subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached.
And as amended.
That's what I said.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Españo.
No.
Member Cavino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
Member
was the
Cavino
second on
did the
that, please?
second. Yes. I said, Member Cavino didn't second the motion. Or somebody.
I think Brenda second.
I did.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear it.
I think we closed the public hearing on all these matters, so we can probably just move on to the next motion, which is on the top of page 14.
It's on the bottom of page 12 if you're on our
sorry.
computer version.
Yes, to close the public hearing on this matter.
We did.
We did. Sorry, I had it for both. You could have done it either way. Okay. So motion, the motion is at the bottom of page 12 for the site plan.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
To approve
Okay,
the
you
request for
want to
approval.
approve the request
Yes.
for approval of site plan application for Arista Development LLC for property located at 150 Lexington Street to permit the construction of a 2,700 plus minus square foot single-story full-service bank branch with one-lane remote drive-through, automated teller machine, ATM, and associated site and utility improvements as reflected on a plan entitled Site Plan Set for the Proposal of Bank 150 Lexington Street. Is there anything on the next page?
Yep.
Second.
I said everything is on the next page.
Got a second?
Burlington, Mass. 10803, prepared by Civil Design Group LLC, dated March 2nd, 2020, revised to May 28th, 2020, subject to the following revision terms and conditions as printed
And amended.
and amended.
Second.
Thank you.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Españo.
No.
Member Cavino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
One more.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Was that, maybe I was, so all the special permits were approved? That was part of the motion? Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
the first special permit, all special permits were all together and then the site plan.
Okay. All right.
And
So-
it was 610 for
Yeah,
both.
all right, I misheard that at the beginning. Well, thank you all very much for your time and working
Thank
with
you.
us. I think it's resulted in a better project. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, this is Barbara again. I believe the only thing left on our agenda is minutes, and Brady did send out minutes for the last May meeting, I think it was. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anyone who was not able to vote?
Yes. I did the review.
Okay.
So,
May I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 21, 2020?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second, Madam Chair. Ernie.
Thank you.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Member Clerk Españo.
Yes.
Member Cavino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
I just want to say 3 cheers to both Don and Brady for getting us up to May 21st, 2020.
Good luck.
Awesome. Nice work.
Here, here.
Nice work, guys.
Yeah, really good. Really good.
You guys
Yes,
do have one
floating
more
is-
quick matter of discussion.
Yes,
Just for
60 Blanchard Road. Kristen.
So 60 Blanchard is, it was a site plan and special permit for an office building that we permitted. I think this is our second extension for 60 Blanchard Road, the site next to the Oracle building. We also just rezoned 60 Blanchard into the IH district, but this is simply to extend for an additional 1 year from May 25th, 2020 to May 25th, 2021 to complete the site plan improvements that were previously approved.
This is the old Datacon property, is
This is the Datacon property that was permitted for an 80,000 square foot office building that they haven't moved forward with. I presume that there'll probably be a change to configuration based on the IH rezoning, but they want to keep this alive for a little while longer.
Okay. If no one has any questions, I think we can dispense with this quickly.
Want a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to hereby grant a 1-year extension of time from May 25th, 2020 to May 25th, 21 to complete the required special permits and site plan improvements pertaining to parking lot layout changes in the new office building at 60 Blanchard Road as requested by the applicant's attorney in the letter dated May 29th, 2020.
Second.
Chairman LaRue.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba.
Yes.
Member Clerk Gaspeya. Member Cavino.
Yes.
Member Raymond.
Yes.
Member Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
In terms of second item of discussion, that's not on there, but as many of you noted, we sent out the master plan. But as also many of you noted, you ran into permission issues, which we hoped by putting it through outside of Burlington, Google Drive, that we would avoid that issue. So bear with us. It is there. We promise. We're trying to get it out there. So, but I appreciate those that tried to get in, but we'll work on that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they need to bring up? No? Okay, great. One thing I wanted to ask everyone, the next meeting that we
Barbara?
Yes?
Are we doing old new business or what are we doing?
Whatever needs.
Oh, were you talking what? I can't hear you.
I was just asking if anybody had anything else they needed to bring up. I have one item I need to quickly discuss, but it's not much.
Well,
what did you want to bring up?
Mine was just in relation to that urgent care. I looked at the screening that was supposed to go on those yellow bollards, and the screening was inside the bollards, so it's not screening anything. And the other bollards that should be changed to black, and they haven't been changed to the black wrought iron. So I'm not sure if they get it. I don't think they really get what the screening is, the meaning of the screening is. So I don't know if that needs to be explained or how.
Maybe they thought it was to keep the mosquitoes away. No.
Well, Brady will touch base with them in the morning. They've been looking for a call back today.
Yeah, let me. This is Bill. Let me pile on that one. I was going to bring that up, but since you brought it up, so there was supposed to be some faux gooseneck lighting there on the sign, but it looked like the sign's pretty much finished. So just double check if they are going to put up the faux gooseneck.
Okay.
As last we asked, but it was in process, but we'll check in again.
It's all tidied up, so I didn't.
Yep.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up was I just wanted to find out if there were any members who knew for certain that they would not be here at the next meeting. And the reason I'm asking is because the next meeting will be our first meeting after the election, and we need to do our reorganization, but we can only do that if all members are present. So if anyone's not going to be here next meeting, let us know. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Stay safe.
Madam Chair, make a
We didn't
motion
motion to adjourn yet.
I was just going to say that. Second.
Chairman LaRue,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Impemba,
Yes.
Member Clerk Espejo,
Yes.
Member Cavino,
Yes.
Member Raymond,
Yes.
Member Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Rappaport.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks,
Hooray.
everybody. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Everybody.
All right.
Good night. Thank you.
Have a good one.